201 million years ago, Earth was not the world we know. It was a single, vast supercontinent called Pangea. A hard, arid world, dominated by bizarre and terrifying giants. But this empire was about to be broken. A catastrophe would tear the continent apart, choking the skies and killing the mighty. Yet, from the shadows of this apocalypse, a new dynasty would rise. One group of survivors would inherit the planet. The age of dinosaurs was about to begin. But they were not the first rulers. To understand the triumph of the dinosaurs, we must first understand the brutal world they were born into. The Late Triassic. This was an ecosystem that had already recovered from one great dying. It was a land of giants. And the undisputed emperors of this world were a group we call the Rauisuchians. Forget the dinosaurs you're picturing. These were something else entirely. Imagine a crocodile, but scaled up to the size of a bus. Imagine it walking, not on a sprawl, but upright, with legs held vertically beneath its body. These were the apex predators. Creatures like Rauisuchians patrolled the land. A 10-foot-tall bipedal monster with a massive, crushing skull. It was the T-Rex of its day. These were the Crocodile Kings of Pangea, and their rule seemed absolute. Alongside them lived other strange dynasties. Giant, armored atosaurs rooted through the dirt, acting as the era's armored pigs, and burrowed beneath their feet. Were the very first tiny, shrew-like mammals. And of course, there were the first dinosaurs. But these were not the giants we know. They were small, fast, and marginal creatures. Things like Coelophysis. They were secondary. They were runners. They were survivors. They were living in the shadows of the Rauisuchian rulers. This was a stable world, locked in an evolutionary arms race. But the very ground beneath their feet was about to betray them all. Section 2. The supercontinent of Pangea was a prisoner of its own size. All that landmass acted like a giant thermal blanket, trapping immense heat from the Earth's core. The pressure had been building for millennia. And then, the crust began to tear. This was not a single volcano. It was the entire planet bleeding. The ground split open. A fissure, thousands of kilometers long, ripped across the center of Pangea. This was the birth of the Central Atlantic Magmatic Province, or CAMP for short. It is one of the largest flood basalt events in Earth's entire history. Imagine a volume of lava so vast it could cover the entire United States a kilometer deep. This wasn't a mountain exploding. This was a planetary-scale wave of fire. Rivers of magma, hundreds of meters high, flooded the world. The world was set on fire. The great forests of Pangea were incinerated instantly. The shallow seas boiled. The mighty Rauisuchians, the Crocodile Kings, had nowhere to run. Their reign, which had lasted for millions of years, was vaporized in a geological instant. But the lava was just the beginning. The true killer was not the fire, it was the air itself. As the magma ocean burned, it released unfathomable quantities of gas. Carbon dioxide, trillions of tons of it flooded the atmosphere. This triggered a runaway greenhouse effect. Global temperatures soared, perhaps by 8 degrees Celsius. The planet was being baked. But there was another poison. Sulfur dioxide. This gas mixed with the air and the water. It created punishing global acid rain. It acidified the oceans, dissolving the shells of marine life. The entire base of the food web was collapsing, on land and in the sea. Scientists call this the Triassic-Jurassic extinction event. It was a 1-2 punch of extreme heat and poison. The large, specialized animals stood no chance. The giant Dinosaurs, the armored herbivores, vanished. The powerful Rauisuchians, specialized for their apex role, starved or suffocated. Their size, once their greatest weapon, was now their fatal weakness. The old world was gone. The ecosystems that had defined the Triassic were unraveling. The great dynasties were being wiped from the book of life. In all, perhaps 75% of all species on Earth went extinct. The throne of the world, once occupied by the Crocodile Kings, was now empty. The planet fell into a deadly, silent twilight. Section 3. The firestorms are over. The lava flows have begun to cool into vast black plains. But the world that remains is a husk. This is the ash world. A silent, choking planet. The atmosphere itself is now the enemy, thin and poisoned with suffocating levels of CO2. On this new, hostile Earth, the old rules of survival are meaningless. Strength, size, and dominance are now fatal liabilities. The mighty Rauisuchians, the apex predators, are gone forever. The land is an open graveyard for the giants. But life endures. In the shadows of this graveyard, the small creatures have clung on. The ones who were overlooked. The ones who were already adapted to living on the margins. And among them, and the early dinosaurs. SFX. Hopeful musical motif begins, sparse. They didn't just get lucky. They possessed a unique biological toolkit, tailor-made for this toxic new world. This toolkit wasn't superior claws or stronger jaws. It was something hidden deep inside their chest. It was how they breathed. The Crocodile Kings, like all modern reptiles, had simple lungs. Simple bellows that pulled air in and pushed the same air back out. It's inefficient. And in a low oxygen, high CO2 world, it's a death sentence. But dinosaurs had evolved something revolutionary. Scientists believe they possessed an avian respiratory system, the exact same system found in modern birds. This isn't just a set of lungs. It's a one-way superhighway, powered by a series of internal air sacs. It is a biological marvel. When a dinosaur inhaled, fresh air filled air sacs in the back of its body. When it exhaled, that stored fresh air was then pushed forward across the lungs. This means their lungs received fresh, oxygenated air on both the inhale and the exhale. It is the most efficient oxygen extraction system in the history of vertebrate life. In the stable Triassic, this was just a neat trick. It gave them better stamina than the reptiles. But in the poisoned atmosphere after the camp eruptions, it became the ultimate adaptation. This was their key to the kingdom. While other animals were gasping, slowly suffocating. The dinosaurs could breathe far more easily. They could not just survive, they could thrive. They could run, hunt, and reproduce in an environment that was killing everyone else. Their small size was also a crucial advantage. They needed less food and less water in a barren world. They were perfectly engineered to inherit a world defined by catastrophic opportunity. The crucible had burned away the old order. And in the silence, the footsteps of the new rulers could finally be heard. Section 4. The Triassic-Jurassic boundary marks a profound reset. A dividing line in the history of life. Before it, the age of bizarre reptiles and crocodile kings. After it, a new world. The extinction of the Rauisuchians and other dominant fauna created a vast power vacuum. All the old ecological jobs were suddenly open. The role of apex predator. The role of giant herbivore. The role of fast, mid-sized hunter. The throne of the world was empty. And the dinosaurs, with their supercharged lungs, were the only ones qualified to take it. What happened next was an explosion of evolutionary creativity. The small, marginal survivors of the Triassic stepped out of the shadows. This was the dawn of the Jurassic and the true beginning of the age of dinosaurs. With no competition, they began to diversify at a rapid rate. Those small bipedal runners, their descendants would become the terrifying theropods. like Allosaurus, and eventually Tyrannosaurus rex. Other groups began to grow, experimenting with armor and defenses. They became the stegosaurs. And then there were the plant eaters who adapted to reach the high, untouched trees. They evolved long necks. They grew to sizes that defied imagination. They became the sauropods, the largest animals ever to walk the earth. The dinosaurs seized every empty niche on every continent, creating an empire that would last for an astonishing 150 million years. Their story is not one of simple brutality. It is a story of profound, improbable resilience. They were not born to rule. They were born in the shadow of giants. They inherited the earth not because they were the strongest, but because they were the most adaptable. They were engineered to survive the apocalypse that killed their masters. They remind us that the end of one world is often just the beginning of another. If you would like to join us on our next expedition into Earth's darkest hours in search of the light of life, consider joining our Researchers Guild by subscribing to the channel. What modern adaptation do you think would be most useful in a future extinction event?